It all started with a quiet, almost innocent feeling in my gut. I remember the last week before the wedding, how everything seemed perfect, so perfect I almost wondered if I was dreaming. She was beautiful, radiant even, and I couldn't help but think about how lucky I was to have her. We'd been together for years, or so I thought. We had plans, a future, a house we picked out together. The kind of life I'd always dreamed of. But beneath that, there was this tiny, nagging voice. Something wasn't sitting right. I was the type of guy who trusted completely, maybe too much. I didn't check her phone, her emails, her social media. I believed in honesty and transparency. She always said the same. But that week I was distracted, busy with work and last-minute wedding details, so I didn't think much about it. That was, until I decided to clean her phone, the sort of mindless gesture I'd never normally do. My palms got slick with sweat as I unlocked her phone. It wasn't anything sneaky. I was just looking for a photo or two, something to remind me of our good times. But what I found wasn't a good memory. It was a series of texts. I scrolled, my stomach dropped. There was her name, of course, but next to it a string of messages that made my throat tight. They were dirty, intimate. Beyond that, they were about her and my best friend Tom. I'd always trusted Tom. We'd been through thick and thin. Hell, I'd even introduced her to him. They'd been texting, flirting, maybe more, right under my nose. I remember reading one message loud and clear. "Can't wait to see you tonight. I've thought about you all day." And then another. "You're the only one who gets me like this. I wish you were here." The words made me feel like I'd been punched in the gut. I could feel my face heat up, my fists clenched so tight my nails dug into my palms. I closed the phone slowly, my mind racing. I looked around the room, noticing how everything suddenly felt colder. The silver ring on my finger felt heavy, like a weight I could no longer carry. The air seemed thick with betrayal. I'd always believed I knew her, but now I wasn't so sure anymore. I couldn't just brush this off. Not after reading those texts. The evidence was right there, her words, her secrets, her lies. The worst part, she'd been hiding this from me probably for months. How many nights had she spent sneaking around? How many times had I come home late or she made excuses about work? All the little things suddenly made sense. The missed calls, the strange texts she'd hide behind her back. It was all part of the lie. And Tom, my best friend, how could he do this? How could he betray me like that? The worst thing wasn't just her cheating. It was the fact I'd been blind to it all. I'd been defending her, trusting her. Meanwhile, they'd been planning to tear me apart from the inside. The day after I found the texts, I couldn't sleep. I kept turning over things in my head, our shared memories, his laughing face, her beautiful smile that now looked so fake. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that screen, those words. That was the moment I realized things needed to change. Big time. I knew I couldn't let this pass, not without some kind of payback. I'd been naive, but I wasn't stupid. I started plotting. I didn't want to ruin everything, but I wanted her to feel what I was feeling right now. Betrayal, hurt, disappointment. I wanted her to understand that I wasn't going to be the fool anymore. I stayed awake most of that night, staring at the ceiling, thinking about how to do this. I needed a plan. It couldn't be impulsive. It had to be calculated, precise. I decided I'd gather everything I needed, then confront her, not just with words, but with a sense of control she wouldn't expect. I wanted her to see that I was done being the one betrayed. Next morning, I woke up with a plan forming. It was time to teach her a lesson she wouldn't forget. I didn't know exactly how yet, but I knew it would hit her hard. And Tom, well, I'd deal with him soon enough. But first, she had to face what she'd done. And just like that, I started to see the cracks in our relationship for what they really were. The truth was out now. No more hiding. No more denial. It was all about to come crashing down. The day dragged on with a strange heaviness in my chest. I couldn't focus at work, and my mind kept circling back to that damn phone. I kept picturing her, her smile that now seemed so sinister, her hands texting behind my back. I kept feeling that sick, sinking feeling, like I'd swallowed a handful of stones. I knew what I had to do, but I also knew this wasn't just about catching her. It was about making her see that I was finished playing the fool. That afternoon, I went to a hardware store. Simple enough, right? I grabbed a small, cheap camera, nothing fancy, just enough to record her reactions. I knew I wasn't going to confront her blindly. I needed proof, something concrete. I wanted her to realize I wasn't bluffing. I also bought a tiny voice recorder just in case I wanted to catch her in more lies later. I felt a strange surge of calm, like I was finally taking control of the chaos I'd been swimming in. Back home, I set everything up. In the bedroom, I placed the camera on a shelf angled just right. I hid the recorder in my pocket. I took a breath and looked at myself in the mirror. My face was pale, but my eyes burned with something I hadn't felt in years: resolve. I had to do this no matter how much it hurt. That evening she came home later than usual. I could smell her perfume, a sharp, sweet scent that made my stomach churn. She looked nervous, maybe guilty, maybe just anxious. No doubt she knew I'd found out and probably thought I'd never figure out what she'd been hiding. "Hey," she said, trying to sound casual as she slipped off her coat. Her voice cracked slightly. "Hey," I replied, my tone flat. "Long day?" She hesitated. "Yeah, you know how work is. Busy. Sorry I'm late." I nodded slowly. "It's okay, I've been thinking about us." She looked uncomfortable now. "What do you mean?" I kept my voice steady. "I found your phone today, your messages." Her eyes flicked to the side, but she didn't say anything. Her hands trembled slightly, and I saw the moment she realized she was caught. I pressed on. "You lied to me, didn't you, about everything? All those times you said you were busy, working late, or just with friends. Turns out you've been hiding something." Entirely. Her face lost color. "It's not what you think," she started, but I cut her off. "Oh, because I saw the texts, you and Tom, the two of you." She shook her head quickly. "It's not like that, it's just a mistake, just a mistake," I interrupted, voice rising slightly. "You've been sneaking around behind my back, texting him, flirting, maybe more, and you call it a mistake." She looked ready to cry. "I didn't mean for it to go this far." I felt a wave of anger boiling up. "You didn't mean for it? Are you serious? After everything we talked about, everything we planned, this is what it's come to?" She tried to speak, but no words came out. Her eyes looked like a trapped animal, and I could see the guilt staring back at me. I wanted her to know I wasn't going to be the sucker anymore. I wanted her to feel what it was like to be betrayed so blatantly. I reached into my pocket, pulled out the recorder, and turned it on, letting her see the red light blinking. "I recorded everything," I said, voice icy. "Every word, every lie. You're not getting away with this, not anymore." Her shoulders sagged. "Please, I didn't want to hurt you, I was just confused." I laughed bitterly. "Confused or just too selfish to care about me? I gave you everything, my trust, my time, my future, and this is how you repay me." She looked down, tears streaming down her face. This was the moment I knew I'd finally had enough. I told her to go to her sisters or somewhere else. I couldn't endure her lying face anymore. I wasn't sure what I'd do next, but I knew this was the beginning of the end. That night I stayed awake, replaying the scene in my head. Every word, every lie, every fake smile. I felt a strange sense of relief mixed with fury. I was done being the victim. I was taking control, no matter how much it hurt. I knew I had to act soon. I had everything I needed now: the evidence, the emotional leverage. I wasn't just going to walk away quietly. No, I was going to make sure she paid for this. And Tom, he'd regret crossing that line soon enough. But for now, I sat alone in the dark, the weight of betrayal crushing down on me, wondering how I got here and what my next move would be. The next morning hit me like a punch to the gut. I woke up knowing I couldn't keep this bottled up anymore. Somehow I had to make her understand that I was serious, dead serious, about ending this. All the lies, the betrayal, the trust that had crumbled overnight. I didn't want to just walk away in silence. I wanted her to feel the full weight of what she'd done. I spent the morning quietly planning my next move. I knew I couldn't just confront her directly again. She'd be defensive, probably deny everything, or worse, try to manipulate me into believing she'd changed. No way. I needed a way to make her see that I was in control now, that I had the evidence, the leverage, and the resolve. I decided to go to her place of work. I figured if I did this right, I could catch her off guard, maybe get her to crack or confess a little more. Plus, I wanted her to see that I wasn't just some guy who'd roll over in. Accept her lies. I become a threat she couldn't brush aside. The parking lot was full of life, but I felt disconnected, like I was watching everything from underwater. My stomach was tight, cold sweat trickled down my palms. I grabbed a small envelope from my bag. Inside I'd placed the cassette recorder, the printed screenshots of her texts, and a note. The note was simple but direct. "I know everything. Don't try to deny it. Meet me tonight or I'll take this to the next step. Walking inside her workplace, I could feel the eyes on me, some sympathetic, some curious. I kept my head high, my heart pounding like a drum. I spotted her at her desk talking to a coworker. She looked up and froze when she saw me. Her face told me everything I needed to know: shock, panic, guilt. "Hey," I said softly, voice cold. "We need to talk now." Her coworker looked between us, then excused herself quickly. She stood up nervously, wringing her hands. "What do you want?" "I brought you something." I handed her the envelope. "It's everything you need to know. The texts, the recordings. I'm done playing your game." Her eyes flicked over the contents, her face paled. "You can't do this." "Oh, I already did," I cut her off. "You lied to me for months with Tom. You thought I'd never find out. Well, here's the thing. I don't want to be with someone who doesn't respect me." She looked at the ground, trembling. "I didn't mean for it to be like this. It just happened." I shook my head. "That's bullshit. It did just happen. You made choices, and you're going to face the consequences." I wanted her to see I was serious. I wanted her to understand she'd lost everything: my trust, my respect, maybe even her relationship with Tom. I turned and left her standing there, feeling the adrenaline spike through my veins. I didn't need to say much more. The evidence did the talking. That evening I sat in my apartment, waiting. Every minute felt like an hour. I kept replaying her face from this morning, her guilt, her fear. I knew she'd call or show up, desperate to explain, to apologize, to manipulate her way back in. But I wasn't buying it anymore. Then her name flashed. On my phone, I hesitated. The anger was still fresh, but part of me wanted to hear her out. I answered. "Look, I'm so sorry," she started quickly. "I never wanted to hurt you. It was a mistake. Please, let's talk." "No," I said firmly. "You had your chance. I've got everything I need here. You're wasting your breath." "You're not serious," she said, voice trembling. "You're overreacting." "I'm done overreacting," I said. "You lied, you cheated, you and Tom. I'm not stupid. I saw the messages. I listened to the recordings. You're not getting out of this easily." There was silence on the other end. Then she whispered, "Please, can we just talk about this in person?" "I don't think so," I replied. "You've made your choice and I've made mine. This is over." I hung up, feeling a strange mix of relief and anger. I'd finally taken control. The power shifted completely. I was no longer the fool, the one betrayed. She was the one who'd lost everything. That night I packed her things into a box. I didn't want anything of hers in my house anymore. I left her a simple note on the door. "This is goodbye. Don't try to reach me. I deserve better." Then, with a steady hand, I handed her the keys to her apartment, the final symbol that I was done. As I watched her drive away, I felt a strange sense of calm. I'd finally done what I needed to do. The betrayal had been real, but now I was free of the lies. The trust was shattered, but I'd rebuild stronger. That's what revenge really is: taking back your power one step at a time. The aftermath hit me harder than I expected. I'd gone through the motions: confrontation, gathering evidence, making my move, and now it was just silence. My apartment felt emptier than ever, somehow colder. Every corner held a memory of us, now tainted. Her scent still lingered in the places I used to find comfort, but I refused to let that feeling consume me. I knew I had to move on, to actually put this behind me. Still, the sting of betrayal lingered in my gut. I kept going over everything, replaying every moment when I thought I saw something off. Every time I ignored those small red flags. The late nights she'd be working, the quick, nervous glances she'd throw my way when I asked about her phone. I'd been blind, but I wasn't anymore. I saw it all now clearly. That night I sat alone, nursing a drink, trying to process what had happened. My phone buzzed on the table. It was Tom. Naturally, I hesitated before opening the message. I knew I had to confront him eventually, but I wasn't sure I was ready. Still, silence wasn't an option anymore. I tapped the screen. "Hey," I typed, trying to keep my voice even. "Can we talk?" His reply came quickly, just a single message. "Can we meet? I need to explain." I stared at the screen, feeling the heat rise in my chest. I didn't want to be the guy who lashed out, but I also didn't want to be the fool who let this slide. I didn't owe him anything anymore, but I knew I had to face him. The next day I arranged to meet him in a quiet park. No friends, no witnesses, just us. I wanted to see him face to face, to get answers, or even just to watch him squirm. He arrived looking awkward, shifting nervously as he approached. I didn't bother with pleasantries. Instead, I pointed at him sharply. "So, Tom," I said, voice cold as ice, "you want to explain what the hell you were doing behind my back?" He rubbed the back of his neck and looked down. "Look, man, I didn't mean for it to get this bad. I didn't want to hurt you. I was just feeling," he hesitated, "lost. Your relationship with her, I guess I was jealous. I didn't think it'd go this far." I felt my fists tight. "Jealous? You're supposed to be my best friend, and you cheated on me with my wife. How do you even sleep at night?" He looked genuinely guilty, maybe regretful. "Honestly, I didn't plan for it to happen. It just did. One thing led to another, and suddenly I was in deeper than I wanted." His words didn't matter anymore. I wasn't interested in his excuses. I just needed him to understand that he'd crossed a line I'd never forgive. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my voice. "You're right about one thing, you screwed up both of you, but I don't want to hear any more excuses. I've already made my decision about what you are, and I don't care if you're sorry." He looked like he wanted to say more, but I cut him off. "Stay away from her. Stay away from me, because I'm done with both of you. You're not my friends anymore, and I'll never trust either of you again." He nodded, voice barely a whisper. "I get it. I really do." I turned and walked away, feeling that strange mixed feeling again: anger, disappointment, relief. The damage was done, and no amount of words could fix it, but I'd made it clear I was finished. That day I started cleaning out my apartment. I threw out the photos, the old gifts, everything that reminded me of what I'd lost. I wanted to erase the past to start fresh. It was painful but necessary. I needed closure, and I was finally getting it. Late that evening, I sat on the floor with a box of her things. I hesitated before sealing it shut, knowing I'd never see her again. I grabbed a pen and wrote on the top, "Goodbye." I handed her the keys with a sense of finality. I knew I was closing one chapter of my life forever. As I locked the door behind me, I felt a strange sense of liberation. I'd been betrayed, humiliated, and hurt, yes, but I was still standing, stronger. And I had learned something crucial: trust is fragile, but my dignity is not. I'd rebuild my life piece by piece, with or without her. That night, I lay in bed and stared at the ceiling, thinking about what was next. I didn't have all the answers yet, but I knew one thing for sure: I wasn't going to let her or Tom ruin me. I'd take back my power, one step at a time. And maybe, just maybe, I'd come out the other side better than before. It's been a few weeks since I cut her out completely and started putting myself back together. Honestly, it's been a rough ride, like peeling layers off and discovering new scars underneath. I won't pretend it's easy, but I'm starting to feel that strange, quiet sense of relief settling in. The kind that comes from knowing you finally took control. I've been focusing on work, trying to drown out the noise in my head, but sometimes the old thoughts creep in: memories of her smile, the way she used to hold my hand, the way I trusted her completely. It's tempting to dwell on what I've lost, but I remind myself that I gained something too: clarity, and a hell of a lot of self-respect. One thing I've realized is that betrayal can be a wake-up call. It hurts like hell, but it also forces you to look at things honestly. The red flags I'd ignored, the quiet doubts I'd brushed aside, they all yelled at me now. I should have seen the signs, but I was blinded by love. Lesson learned. I met up with some old friends I'd neglected during the chaos. They've been a huge help. One of them, Mike, told me, "You gotta stop blaming yourself. You did nothing wrong. Sometimes people just aren't who they seem." That stuck with me, because for a while I wondered if I was somehow responsible. Did I miss the signs? Could I have done something differently? The truth is no. People make their choices, and sometimes those choices break you. But I also made some new plans. I signed up for a gym membership to get some physical activity. I started reading more, digging into books I'd never taken the time for. I even bought a nice new pair of shoes, something that made me feel good, something I could focus on instead of dwelling on the past. And then, one night, I finally did something I'd been avoiding. I called her. Not to beg or plead, just to get closure. I wanted to hear her voice, to know she understood what she'd thrown away. She answered after a few rings, voice trembling. "Hey, I didn't expect you to call." "Yeah, well, I needed to hear it," I said, keeping my tone steady. "Do you understand what you lost, or are you so blinded by your mistakes that you don't even get it?" There was silence. Then she whispered, "I know I screwed up. I was stupid and I lost everything because of it. I just hope you can forgive me someday." I laughed bitterly. "Forgiveness isn't mine to give anymore. You made your choice. I'm moving forward without you, and that's what's best for me." She cried softly on the other end. I never meant for any of this to happen. I was confused and I thought I could fix it, but I see now I was wrong. "Good," I said, voice cold. That's all I needed to hear. After hanging up, I felt that familiar mixture of relief and exhaustion. It was a chapter closed, a wound finally stitched up. I couldn't control her actions, but I could control how I responded. That's the real power. Now I'm focusing on myself, what I want, what makes me happy. I've started journaling, reminding myself daily that I deserve better. I'm learning to trust again slowly. It's not easy, and I'll probably carry some scars, but I refuse to let her betrayals define me. Next, I plan to make new connections, trustworthy ones. I know there's a lot of pain still lingering, but I also know I'm stronger than I thought. The worst is behind me, and I've realized something crucial. The only person who can truly heal me is me. So I'll keep moving forward one day at a time. I've handed back the keys, closed the door, and thrown away the lock. The future's uncertain, but I'm finally ready to face it, because no matter how deep the betrayal, the only way to heal is to keep walking. And I intend to do just that. It's funny how, after everything, life moves on without you even realizing it. For a while, I thought I'd be stuck in that place, angry, hurt, bitter. But slowly, the fog started to lift. I got up each morning, morning after morning, telling myself I was better off without her, that I deserved more than the lies, the betrayal, the broken promises. And I finally began to believe it. The biggest turning point was handing over the keys and officially ending things. I remember pushing the door shut behind her that day. The silence was deafening. I felt a strange mix of emptiness and liberation, like I'd finally broken free from the chains I'd been dragging around for months. That simple act of giving her the keys was more than just a gesture. It was a symbol of reclaiming my life. Once she was gone, I stood in my apartment, taking a deep breath. The air felt lighter, cleaner. I looked around at the mess I'd made, the broken trust, the lingering pain. I saw it all, and for the first time, I didn't want to hide from it. I wanted to face it head on. It was part of my story now, a hard lesson, but a lesson nonetheless. I sat down and wrote a letter to myself. It wasn't for her, it was for me. A reminder of what I'd been through, what I'd learned, and what I promised I'd never do again. I promised to trust again, but this time smarter. I swore to value myself more, to listen to my gut, and to never ignore those red flags again. I promised to forgive not her but myself for staying so long in the dark. In the weeks that followed, I started rebuilding. I reconnected with old friends who reminded me of who I was before the betrayal. I threw myself into new hobbies, things I'd always wanted to do but never made time for. I even took that trip I'd always dreamed of, one I'd told myself I'd go on with her. But I went alone, and it was one of the most freeing experiences of my life. There were moments when I'd stumble, when the old feelings crept back, anger, heartbreak, regret. But I learned to sit with, to accept that pain is part of healing. It's a process, not a switch. And every day I got a little stronger. Every day I chose myself a little more. Looking back, I realized betrayal is a brutal teacher. It exposes your weaknesses, but also your resilience. It forces you to confront truths you'd rather ignore. And in that confrontation, you find parts of yourself you never knew existed: strength, courage, the will to survive. I'm not fully healed yet, but I'm healing. And that's enough. So here's what I want anyone reading this who's going through something similar to remember. Trust is fragile. When it's broken, it hurts, but it's also an opportunity to rebuild not just your relationships, but yourself, to learn who you are when everything's been stripped away, to realize that even in betrayal, there's a chance for growth. What I learned most of all is this: you don't need someone to complete you. You only need yourself. And if someone's not willing to respect that, then they're not worth your time. Because, in the end, the only person who truly matters in your story is you. And now, I finally believe that I am enough, more than enough, to face whatever comes next. And I'll keep walking forward step by step, carrying the lessons of betrayal like armor. Because I know, without a doubt, that I can survive anything. And that realization is the greatest revenge I could ever hope for.